Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. Yeah, we need to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so 2.0 was a pretty big release. That was content collections, which is our new way to organize how you like keep content in an Astro project. We are that feature that had existed as experimental feature before 2.0, but not for very long. Like it only been around for like a couple months before then. So audio, are they having trouble hearing you or hearing me?
That we can fix it quickly. Okay. Can we confirm that it works?
Hello, hello.
We can hear Matthew. Okay. There
Nice.
there you are. Okay. So sorry about that.
Yeah,
uh,
cool.
so let
So
me
we
let me restart then.
okay.
So okay. Uh, now I don't remember what it was where I
We're
was
talking
starting.
about Astro 2.1.
Yeah. So no, I think they couldn't hear me like earlier, so that was the problem. So
Oh,
okay, let me start from this. So hi everyone. We are going to talk with co-creator of Astro. Uh, I wanted to talk with him because Astro 2.1 released recently and new React docs dropped, so that caused a lot of like discussion. What are we going to do with like what kind of tools should be mentioned on that website? We know that Next has to be there, but like could Astro be there? That's that's a thing that I wanted to talk. And yeah, we're going to start with this just like covering what happened in 2.1 and what are kind of like plans for Astro going forward. And yeah, so everyone already could hear Matt, but uh, so
okay.
let's go back to that. Sorry for audio issues.
They could they could hear me or they
Yeah,
could not. They could?
yeah, they could.
So they heard okay. I'll just re-say what I said very, very quickly, which is that content collections came in 2.0. That was our big feature. So the content collections are a way to organize your content, like your blog posts, etc., in an Astro project. It's really trying to lean into separation of content from presentation. This was an issue that, obviously from the start of Astro, mixing content and presentation kind of in the same directory, treating them as the same thing. They're each pages. Has some benefit as far as organization, but has some difficulty as far as how you want to design your site. It has a big problem where when you want to like, hey, I want to get a collection of all my recent blog posts. Well, how do you do that if a blog post is just the same thing as any other page? You have to like grab them somehow and like filter them. And content collection solves all of that by creating a special place. And it's awesome because you get a schema, so you get TypeScript validation on all of your blog posts. So if you forget to add a description or a OG image or something like that, you get type errors. Astro 2.1 um, is a um, it's kind of a continuation on that in some regards, especially with MarkDoc integration. So Astro 2.1 has MarkDoc support. So MarkDoc is a new format that was developed by, I think, Stripe. Yeah, and what this new integration does is allow you to use MarkDoc files in a content collection. But one of the advantages of the MarkDoc is that it is faster. Like that's kind of its primary reason for existing. Um, it is because it's like more static. I don't know the gory details. Ben could tell you like why it's faster exactly, but
Yeah,
um,
actually, I haven't played with MarkDoc before, and I think the question is like, if you're doing something faster, you have to like pay in some other place, and it's like, what is kind of like the thing that's do you sacrifice like
yes,
developer experience a bit for that, or what's the story there?
yeah, that's very true. And I think that is to be determined from our standpoint. That's something we're still looking into because yeah, that's definitely like something that we immediately felt like we were like we did a spike on converting one of our websites to MarkDoc, and then we ran into like, oh, especially like converting from MDX, it's like, oh, you like kind of know how to do stuff in MDX because of your thinking in terms of components. And in MarkDoc, you have to think a little differently because it doesn't have those. It kind of has things like that, but they're not quite the same, and so they don't compose in the same ways. So you kind of have to rethink how you do it. So it's a long story of saying that like that, and we're not really sure like um, is the trade-off the right one or not? But we do know that we're kind of in this situation where um, like everything compiling to JavaScript just cannot scale to a gigantic website. Like you can't, unless we went to very drastic measures of like developing our own compiler and stuff. Like if all content is JavaScript, uh, that scales kind of, in a linear fashion, and that just can't work. You also have the problem with MDX is that doing that at runtime is probably not possible, which means that if you want to do something like pull an MDX file from a CMS or something at runtime, like in an SSR server, like that'd be very difficult to do. So we're still kind of exploring this, and MarkDoc was just one of our first uh, you know, rode down that, I guess you could say. But there's kind of these problems that we're looking at performance and then like how do you do stuff at runtime that made us, question whether MDX is like the right long-term solution. Um, so yes, anyways, yes, that is why. What is this one about? Oh yeah, this the PR or is this is the RFC?
RFC, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Uh,
actually, I kind of like, I appreciate this thing of where you you don't try to do like everything, and but you still have kind of like first party integrations or like things that you kind of like recommend, or like what happened with images is that they got kind of like built in into Astro, and because it was a
mhm.
separate integration that like not everyone is like even like used or relied on, you get like work on it, right, and like improve it. And
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, images are a big thing too. So I mean, yeah, I guess we did the image integration like at the like right before 1.0. I think that was like our like one more thing kind of thing, whereas like we were getting ready to release 1.0 and probably Fred was like, we should do a quick image integration or something. And I think we did like pretty quick spike. And then that's been kind of, you know, been working on over the course of the last 6 months or something like, or no more than that, but not quite a year. But anyways, yeah, it was like obvious, like everybody wants to do image creation all the time, and like I'm the kind of person that I always felt like I'd rather just like you know I'd rather use the web squoosh and just like throw an image, get optimized files, throw them in a folder, and then just do it manually
mhm.
rather than having to deal with like all this mechanics happening all the time. But I was wrong on that because everybody else in the world wants to do automatic image integrations. So yeah, this is us like leaning into it for sure,
I
and
actually that
improving that thing.
actually resonates with me a lot of like, hey, I can introduce this kind of like pipeline or tool, but like who knows
Yeah,
if it's going to work with like my adapter, or like if it's going to break in like new version of Node, or like some
yeah.
kind of like hard to.
Like
Uh,
yeah, they Sharp doesn't work outside of, or Sharp is like a C++ library, I believe, so it only works in Node. You can't, yeah, there's all these issues, and it's like, yeah, sometimes I feel like I'd rather just do the manual thing. That's a little bit more work for me now, but I don't have to worry about it. But that doesn't scale at all, so I understand.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
you can't do it at runtime, you can't do that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that makes sense. So like thing that is more exciting for me is usually like TypeScript related stuff. Like
that's hilarious that this is the thing that, so this is a community contribution. So yeah, this is a pretty small thing. It's funny that this is the one that you latch onto.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, this is how do I say it? We saw like an evolution, right, of the this kind of approach with Next, with like Remix after that, like Svelte has their own kind of like TypeScript conventions, and
mhm,
we are going to talk about like a bit about Bling and stuff, and
mhm. Yeah.
so this at
So
this
kind of the
point it looks
APIs.
more like
Sorry.
a Next.js one, but it's actually a bit like more type safe, because Theo has like a huge video explaining like why Next.js is like constantly lying you about types of props. So
Mhm.
this is like more on kind of like remix level as far as I remember.
My understanding of the code is that this is very simple. Like it's literally just inferring the type.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you could do manually. That's just a little bit more convenient.
sure.
Um, yeah, it's funny. Like these types of APIs, like you can tell that they were designed before TypeScript was as widely popular as it is now, because they could. That's kind of API is just not kind of type safe just to begin with, right? Just kind
Right.
of like
So it
exporting a function that has a special name. It's like
yeah.
that can't be type safe.
Speaking
Uh,
of like special names, like one of the things that I see like a lot of them are doing right now is like export prerender equals true, right? So that's
yeah,
I think that was like 2.0 feature, right?
yeah, yeah. It is.
So I actually have a question. Oh yeah, by the way, if someone in the chat has a questions, yeah, just drop them and I will try to I will try to ask
Uh,
them. So
before you ask,
uh-huh.
I'm gonna say that I think TypeScript is working on this problem though, like the exporting a function and having that be typed.
Hmm.
I think TypeScript is like working on some feature for that. I don't know what it is, but I think they're working on it. So, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to segue into the question of like SSG and SSR. So I only kind of like started to um, look into Astro once you added SSR.
Hmm.
Even though I don't believe like JavaScript is like a real language, I don't use it on the server, but it's like, okay, this this seems like a real framework now, because like you can generate static website with like anything. I like
Hmm.
when I was in like a first year university, I wrote like a static site generator in Delphi. So it's like
Yeah, I've
that's
done Bash script
uh,
before. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I've done it in Bash scripts before as
Yeah,
well.
exactly, exactly. So it's like, yeah, static site generation is like kind of like doesn't imply as like as a real framework, if that makes sense. At least like that's kind of like how I felt about it. It's like, okay, you are like trying to be a real framework. You're doing SSR now, and that's like, okay, I need to look into that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm kind of like half joking, but
Yeah.
this is kind of like the
I
time.
kind of miss our SSG only days. Just like a few of us on the team have talked about this, but like there's something nice about just like we're done at the end of like once you run build, our job is done. We don't have to worry about anything
Yeah.
else. Uh, it's nice having less responsibility, but I
It's not
obviously.
completely true for everything, even if you're doing SSG, right? Because you're like, hey, I want to use like image optimizations, and that's like kind of like next feature or like Vercel feature that you need to like hook into, even though you're like doing
Oh
a
yeah,
static website. So it's like I
yeah,
wish like everything was as simple as just like generate one file, right? And it's like just base 64 everything into it.
yeah. Yeah, I know. We had talked about for a while before we did this SSR. We weren't for sure going to do it, but obviously, like so many people were asking for it that eventually we're like, all right, we gotta have to do this. But yeah, we had explored like, okay, what does all of this look like if we were just to be SSG? We had explored like ideas to be like, all right, well, we could have like hosted services that like do forms for you. Like we could be your forms backend kind of thing and like incorporate that into the framework to where like, I don't know exactly what that would look like. But, like you could see where like you import an Astro form component and but you're an SSG site, so like that form component posts to Astro and then like it puts the form data into like a table and we like have a UI for that. Like we talk about different like how can we build like services around SSG. um so it's kind of I like thinking about restrained environments because it forces you to think about problems in like different ways.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of times one thing that I always get uh, I always try to break out of is I think that we tend to think about problems and we put the same constraints on our problems. And by putting the same constraints on the problems we're trying to fix, we all wind up with the same solutions or very, very similar solutions.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's why frameworks all look very, very similar, even though people culturally love to focus on like minute differences. Those differences aren't really that big. I mean, even like something as like Svelte syntax versus JSX. Like it's not really that different. Anyways, that's kind of a sidebar, but that's something I think about a lot because I am a big believer in different. I'm a big believer in differentiation. Number one, but I'm also a big believer in if we all keep trying to solve the same problems over and over again, then there's something fundamentally wrong with our constraints and there's a constraint wrong. You know what I mean? Like there's an assumption that I'm getting very philosophical here, but there's an assumption that we all have about what we're trying to fix. It must be wrong because we keep like going back to the well and like trying very similar things and they keep failing over and over again. All right, I'm gonna stop. Uh,
No, I'm enjoying it. So the kind of like the question that I wanted to ask was about like why when you so going back to the like idea, I wanted when I use Astro, I want to stretch SSG as far as possible, and it's always kind of like, oh, but I need like this one feature. It's like, why do I need to turn like everything to SSR now just because of like this route requires something? I know that you have like a functions. So as far as I remember, there is a way to deploy it to like a versal netlify where you're like, hey, my website is static, but there are also like some functions that you can run as well. So I don't know like if Astro does that by default or I have to like do it manually. Do you know what I'm talking about?
you're saying that like you might want to have like some Netlify functions
Yeah, yeah,
alongside like your SSR app,
yeah.
right?
SSG.
Oh, SSG.
Yeah. So the
Oh,
idea is that
I think you can do that. We don't
yeah.
help with that, I don't believe. But yeah, if like for example, Netlify, I think Netlify you have a .netlify slash functions folder or something like that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
So
maybe
it's
just
like
functions. Yeah,
jamstack is the idea is that you can build your static website and then you have like a
yeah,
slash API route that is going to be either proxied to some like real server or it's going to be
yeah,
like netlify function or something like along those lines. And
yeah,
this is where kind of like my mind goes and it's like can I use Astro like that if I only have like a one API that I want to hit and I want to have my like some secret key to like yeah basically I wrote this this app GPT kind of like app, right? So I can ask a question and it will call like real GPT API, but I can't like publicly send those keys. They have to be on the server. So now, because I need just one kind of like proxy that like adds headers, now I need to like turn my whole app into a SSR in Astro, and now I need
Yeah.
to go back and like add exports pre-render equals true to add my
Yeah.
like I so my proposal for 3.0.
We're already going to do that. We already got this. This is on our roadmap. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there will be some way to have a, have one particular like API route that is SSR in an SSG.
Yeah, so
Um,
my proposal for 3.0, just do SSG by default. And it's like,
well, that's going to happen.
and do SSR per route. So it's like instead of pre-render true, it's like SSR true. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the API will look like, but it might be pre-render false or pre-render. Yeah, pre-render false. Yeah, that is kind of a confusing term. I don't know what the API will look like, but we're gonna work on that before 3.0.
Yeah. Because
That was like that
uh-huh.
was big feedback from their pre-render is we might have rushed that feature a little bit. Um, we, obviously we saw the need for it, but we were just like, this feels like an SSR feature. We were thinking more in terms of like, okay, I have a SaaS app, but I want my marketing pages to be static, that kind of thing. We weren't looking at from the other side, so we got that feedback pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I understand like where it came from, right? That's how SvelteKit works.
yeah, I don't know if that's really. I mean, we examined all the different frameworks. Maybe we got this from them, but yeah, yeah, I don't
And
know.
like one also interesting thing is like pre-render auto. So it's like, hey, if I'm using, I think you talked about it with that interview that you did with Brittany, is like, hey, if I already have like get static props like function, why do you like try to SSR it? It's like I already kind of like opted into that thing. Why can't you just like infer that from usage or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that works in that particular scenario. I wonder if that works here though. I don't know. I haven't thought of much about this API, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just a question of like if Astro is like content oriented and like the last jamstack player, everyone is like moved to
Well, now they say Jamstack includes SSR now.
yeah,
They
yeah,
say
yeah.
that, so I don't even know what the word means anymore. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, and exactly with going back to your thing about like everything turns into the same thing. Like Svelte Kit, they said, hey, we are going to build transitional apps, and
yeah,
the apps like Quick, Astro, and Marco, and they ended up just writing Next.js in Svelte. So it's like it has like exactly the same features.
yeah.
There's
Well,
like term, and they just called what they got as a transitional app, and it's like, why is it transitional? Because you can do pre-render true for some of the pages. Okay. You'll now like destroy the term that you try to come up with.
I'm not gonna criticize that too much because I don't know what went into that. Yeah, I don't want to criticize that. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I heard that. I think I my let's get a little spicy. My take was that we influenced a little bit of that conversation in that like we made multi-page apps cool again, and like it was not everything had to be a spa, and then so spas got started getting a little. People actually started thinking about like maybe not everything should be a spa. Like that was just an assumption. And I think Rich very much believes that everything should be a spa, and I feel like transitional apps was partially a response to like just kind of changing attitudes and moods about spas. So
Right.
uh,
And I
yeah,
actually have this like demo that I like to show to everyone is This is actually most of this website was written by Jesse Pence. He's in the tweet chat right now. um, Except for this feature. This is what I didn't post to play with transitional apps. So the idea is that if I go to, I don't know, like network tab, when it go between like home and FAQ, oh, it's a bunch of like proxy town, but I need to switch to, sorry, probably like too small anyway. But when I go between those pages, I get full page reloads, but now then I go to docs, and if I navigate between these pages, I don't get full page reload anymore, but I actually still get
Is
the
this an Astro site?
uh, yes.
Okay. Cool. What'd you use for this?
Yeah, so you see that it actually gets like partials
Oh.
of pre-rendered markdown, so I don't need to ship any like markdown renderers, um, and I don't have to like hydrate this app because it's like it's just as a like Astro child. So if you go to like and find like, I don't know, like replace Astro and need something, right, and go to page, the string is there only once, as opposed
Hmm.
to if you go to like Svelte uh, hashtag transitional apps. Where is it? Yeah, hashtag transitional apps. So if you copy like this text, and if you go to page source, it's going to be there twice because it needs to be there in HTML and it needs to be there in uh,
Oh, the hydrated data
yeah,
or whatever.
hashtag
Yeah.
transitional hydration.
Uh, yeah. Would you just wired up your own client side routing and fetch the document? Is that what you're doing?
So this is um, this is, I think, kind of like the main kind of like part of this video that I wanted to talk about is like, how can we make this like a thing, and uh, how can we make this like usable thing, and like UX, DX, all of those X's wise, because how kind of like how much do you care about like React server components?
How much do I care
Yeah,
about them?
yeah, yeah.
It's an odd question. How do I care about them? I mean, I guess
I
I care
mean,
about
there's a
them.
clear
Like,
question
do I
of
want
like,
to use them, or
is
what do you
React
mean?
server components support like on the roadmap for Astro?
Oh, for Astro. It's not on the roadmap. That doesn't mean we won't do it. I know it was doing some experimenting with them or something.
Uh-huh.
So I think our ideal world is that like you could define a React island just like you normally do in Astro, and that could have server components, and it could do whatever it want. And like within that island is its own React server component app, and so it can do all this normal stuff.
Right.
I think that's what we would want to enable. Um, I don't know the feasibility or anything like that. Like I don't know enough about like how React Server Components works, whether it needs like own the entire page or if it doesn't have to own the entire page. I would, yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a strong answer. I think the routing part is like, don't you have to define your own router if you implement React Server Components? And so
Right.
we
So
have to like create a router, and I don't know if we want to do that.
that's the thing
I don't know.
is,
Anything's possible,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. So the way that they call it like in new React docs is like completely in React, right? So like, you want to write your app completely in React. Do you
yeah.
know the page I'm talking about?
Yeah, so what is the use case here? Is it like I want to, is that the use case? Like when you say, hey, can we use React Server Components in Astro? Is it like, hey, I want to use React
Yeah,
completely in Astro?
I will. That's actually like a real good question, and I think we're not there yet to like for me to give like a good answer. So I just wanted to show like this page. Here's the page that everyone is like raving about. Is like some people who like Next, they're like finally, they're like the first thing. Oh no, is that no this page? So finally, you should just use Next.js. Don't do anything else. We finally solved every problem that React had. Just use Next.js. And like, of course, everyone who doesn't think that Next.js is the best thing kind of like upset about it. And it's like, okay, so we have Gatsby here, which is like kind of like started that that thing is like, why like Docosaurus is not there, right? Why like Astro is not there? And the answer is that they can come up with is like fully with React. So
Hmm. Yeah.
like
Well, we're not
Astro is
gonna.
huh?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Astro is not fully in React. Astro is like in Astro, but then you can like opt in into React for some of the stuff.
Sure.
And um, so just high level, like what React Server Components do is they they are doing exactly the stuff that like .astro files do,
Hmm.
except that they're doing routing and like a bit of bundling, kind of like magic. So in
Hmm.
scope, it's really close to like how I don't know, like
Alex.
Quick works or like Astro works, because it needs to figure out how everything runs. It needs to figure out if like if on the server I could use like this client component, or sometimes I use this client component. It needs to have like bundle needs to be aware of like sometimes you need just this JavaScript bundle, sometimes you need just that JavaScript bundle. Does that kind of like make sense?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
React Server Components do a lot of things, and what Ben played was like a minimal kind of like React Server Components implementation that
Hmm.
Daishi did. That's the guy who's working on like Zoost and Jotai, and what's the other one? Like he does a lot of that stuff, and he wrote like a small framework that is like not tied to every like Next.js feature in existence. It just does React Server Components and like and a bit of routing. I don't remember the routing part, but if you're just comparing this to Astro, it's kind of like it solves the same issues of like, okay, so what if I'm streaming some data? What if I want
Hmm.
to like include this or that JavaScript like front end bundle? Like I need to SSR some of the pages like before I am sending it to like I need to turn it HTML, and it solves like all of those the same things. It needs to have like a boundary between the client and the like server part, right? So
Hmm.
instead of like client directive, you write use client. But then it
Hmm.
goes one step further of adding a router.
Yeah.
That means
Client
that
side router.
I'm sorry.
Client side router,
No,
right?
no, no. The server side router. That's the kind of like the new paradigm, if that's like allowed, if I'm allowed to use this word. But like they're kind of like
Server side router is a new paradigm.
yes,
Okay, I'm confused.
yeah. So the difference
Next.js
is
already had a server side router.
yeah. So uh, the difference between like a router in Next, if you're talking like old Next, right, without server components, is that
Hmm.
this router like it just renders. It's just a component inside of your React tree, if that makes sense. It's just a component. It doesn't do like
Hmm.
anything magical. I think they only do like that bundle splitting on top of it, but otherwise it's just a component. And um, if you go to React Server Components router, it can do like it do stuff a bit. Uh, okay, I missed a step. So this is like Next.js, and then there's Astro or like Quick. They get a request and they render your app on the server, and
Hmm.
then if route changes, you are now like basically as in this demo you're now need to as like a user figure out, is this a link that is like causing a full page reload, is this a link that causes like SPA kind of like behavior, right? That's
Just
uh-huh.
can I just ask, just on your website here,
Sure.
can you even feel a difference between those two?
You I kind of yeah, I see like I see the like the loading spinner. But
It's
I
like barely like I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
like
I know
honestly
what you
I can't
mean,
feel a
and
difference.
it's actually if I go to like this page and I forgot how to do this, but you have like all the all the like scrolling issues and all of the same kind of like stuff that you have to deal with as PA. So it's like it's not a whole solution. I know what you're talking about, but just
Oh no, I
to
wasn't criticizing your implementation.
yeah
I think for a site like this,
yeah
well, no, I shouldn't say that. For a simple content site, I don't think it's really necessary. Now, obviously there is use cases, like if you have a media player that's playing and stuff like that,
yeah
then a full page reload is harmful.
yeah
But yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance about like when it should exist and when it should not.
right
But
uh-huh
I think you didn't ask this question, but I think you're asking like, are we ever going to have client side routing in Astro? And yeah, I think we are going to work on that like relatively soon.
uh-huh
Um, so yes, we are going to work on that. That's the
okay.
thing that we don't have currently.
Right,
That
and
sets.
this is like the backstory is that I uh, like about a year ago. This is like my stream when like React beta. Oh, sorry, Astro beta like dropped about a year ago. I started to look into like, okay, we are using Create React app. It's clearly going to die. Like, what are we going to use instead? And the biggest kind of like contenders, but by the end of it, were like Astro and Isles. And Isles has their own turbo integration. So they like this page is actually it works as a like SPA router, but it's just using turbo. So it's that's the thing that you just like
What
mentioned.
is what is turbo?
Um, it basically automates that like data fetching stuff. So like when I click on the link, it gets like this page, and it kind of like morphs it and figures out, okay, only like
Okay,
this thing.
it's there. Turbo is there. Something they wrote though, or
No,
is that
no,
another
Turbo is
library?
like a it started as
Oh, Turbo Links.
yeah yeah
Okay,
yeah.
so actually
It started
we
as
have
uh-huh.
we have a Turbo Links integration
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Astro already. Did you know that?
yeah. I don't remember.
Okay, we actually do have a Turbo Links integration. I don't know. I don't know if it's this looks newer, so maybe ours is not as up to date. Yeah, we had issues with our Turbo Links stuff,
Right, and both of
but
them are like here it's experimental, right? So it's like
yeah.
Turbo being used in Astro. Someone posted in yeah, I guess like yeah, people are using this integration, but this is if we're talking about like this level, it's not exactly it. And the difference is that like in Quick, for example, Quick is the kind of like a weed of like server frameworks in my mind, because they're like, hey, here are like all the low level APIs that you need. You can build like any framework on top of it. It's like if you don't like lazy loading, yeah, just don't use it. If you don't like this, just don't use it. They give kind of like low level like stuff,
Mhm.
and the thing with their approach is that they also don't have those features that React Server Components have. And that feature is namely the idea is that when you click on this link, like that would cause a full page reload.
Mhm.
What they're doing is that they're going to the server, but they're not requesting an HTML document like Quick or Astro would. They
You
are
said when you say they, you mean React Server Components,
yes,
right? Okay, yeah,
like this new paradigm.
yeah. They're requesting like a JSON blob or something, right?
So they are sending a request that is like, hey, I want to render this page. And by the way, it can work with SSG and SSR, so you can like pre-build those pages in advance.
Hmm.
The server components for Solid are implemented a bit differently, so I don't know if that like SSG story is going to work there. But in React, it's basically for each like why is it a server server router? Because for each page they need to have like two endpoints. So one endpoint is like, hey, render it to HTML and a bunch of JavaScript bundles, and the other is
Hmm.
like, hey, render this to we'll call it like JSON or JSX or like VDOM, right? Render it to some other layer, and it will also send, like, if you need a new JavaScript bundle, it will send it and all of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, like when they were talking about like relay, like the idea behind relay was that if I'm going to a new page, I'm requesting a new data and also like a basically like a JavaScript bundles for that new route. So this is kind of like continuation of that idea. And apart from sending data, not this way. It's like instead of sending data, they're basically sending you like JSX, but
Mm-hmm.
only server side JSX. So the parts that are not marked as use client.
Mm-hmm.
In Astro terms, that would be um, I'm not sure which page I'm going to show. let me figure out. I don't know, like landing. Uh, yeah, I think it's the wrong page. Yeah, I'm
They send you the HTML for the
okay. This one.
non-client parts, right?
So so they basically, like, they still have holes for client components. So they will send like a marker here, right?
Uh-huh.
But like this thing, they will turn it into like if they would turn it to HTML, that would be like turbolinks. But they turning it into JSX. And what's the difference? Is the difference is that if this component, if this like island has like a prop, there's like 1 2 3 or like X, right? And you got
Mm-hmm.
this X from new date, I don't know, right? So their marker here, it still has that prop, and
Mm-hmm.
your this works basically as like get server side props on Next.
Mm-hmm.
Get server side props on Next is like you can update like one prop when you're
Mm-hmm.
navigating between pages. You can like each page has its own prop. But now
Mm-hmm.
if I have like if I have two clients, now like I will be sending two props. So it's like it's more general solution that get server side props. You can like implement get server side props like easily inside of React Server components, because they're like the difference is that if you go to Next router on the server, for each page you have like a hey, here's HTML, and hey, here's like here's JSON for new props. Now that JSON is working like not kind of like on the props level, but on like kind of like JSX level, if that makes sense. So it could
Yeah.
be like more, and because you still have those holes, like you don't have to do anything on the client. So it's like if I had like this page, and if I just like went on a different page where X is different, my client will just get the new props, and that's going to be it. So like the in terms of like VDOM rendering is like, yeah, it's going to be like just like one node that's going to be updated somewhere. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense somehow?
Yeah, as far as how it works, yeah.
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 So, and the difference is that their links, when you click on them, they're going to the server. They know which page you're rendering, and you're writing your application in this kind of like isomorphic thing where everything is a React, and everything works as if it rendered the whole page on each navigation. But
Mm-hmm.
this their kind of like reconciliation that they do in VDOM, they do kind of like similar reconciliation of the server, and they only know like if um, if this is like a new markdown document, they can render that markdown document to HTML. And if you're sending this prop as like HTML, now you don't need to ship like markdown parser. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be working kind of like more similar to how how Astro works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we'll do client side routing exactly.
Uh-huh.
Um, my because yeah, I mean, I don't know. I could see a few different patterns. I
Okay.
really
Uh-huh.
what I really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to like your now you're asking like question. What would React server components look like in Astro, and there are like two kind of like answers to that. So one answer is like, yeah, just don't deal with them. Just like have a route where you just like give everything, you give control to React server components, like how TanStack router or like SolidStart are going to work soon. They're like, we just like we are hijacking like request response, and like Astro doesn't like just doesn't touch our stuff. It's like we're going to handle like everything. So we're going to bundle this code our own way. We're going to like route everything our own way as soon as like we get request response. So it's like don't touch us. So that was like one approach. The other approach is like if I have what Kenzie Dots calls full stack components. Kenzie Dots. So the idea behind full stack components is that I have I don't know, like MD5 calculator. I have an input where I write something and server returns me an MD5. I don't have to ship like crypto. I mean, right now you can count MD5 on the server, but like on the client. But let's imagine that you can't. It's like, hey, I can calculate this thing, or maybe like it encrypts it. That's probably a better example. So you have a string, and you need to have a component that will handle like debouncing all of that kind of like stuff. But then it needs to go to server and say, hey, server, like do this calculation, and I get something back. If you're working like third-party servers, so you're like, I'm selling a plugin that will allow you to like do all of this stuff, and it will just connect to my server. I just have like my server URL, and it's like that's kind of like the end of the story. But what if I want to be like open source package on npm that is implementing both client and server side? It's like, and I don't want to set up those configurations where my server URL is, right? I just want it to be full stack component that is aware of both server and client implementation. That's kind of like the thing is like, now with React Server components, you will see like npm packages soon that will like, hey, we are like VZV editor, but our markdown preview happens on the server. Does that kind of like make sense as an example? And it doesn't happen on like on some server that's like URL in front like beforehand, but it's like it's happening on your server. So like the tool that is like deploying this thing, it needs to know that like once I deployed it to like Netlify, this is going to be like Netlify URL. Once I deploy it to Vercel, this is going to be the Vercel URL. And this is where like I'm sure like soon you will have like, hey, and here I have like my markdown preview like React component that's going to be like server side React server component. So it needs to yeah, like the one when I use it in Next, I use it from server side component, because you can't like mix it server side and client side. You have to like, if you have a client application, you need to pass it the same kind of like rules as an Astro, right? You need to pass it as a child. And then this component, it implements both kind of like some kind of like server logic. It could be like streaming, it could be like doing kind of like a lot of that stuff. It could be like uh, bundling like CSS or who knows what. It's like it could do a lot of things, but the end result is like in Next it works, and like in Astro it doesn't work because it's like it's no longer like a client thing. It's like client and server thing that is abstracted as a component. That's the kind of like the whole idea. That's like what Dan Abramov is like talking all the time. Is like, yeah, we're writing like universal like UI language. Like everything should be a component. It's like now finally server is a component. Because before it was like you had something from outside that was doing server side stuff, and then it will like call a render and just like pass a prop, render to string and then pass a prop. They're like, no, we want all of this stuff to be inside of a component as well.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that we kind of got off track there. We were talking about routing and then we started talking about all right, React Server components. Are you
Yeah.
saying that there's going to be components packages that won't work in Astro because they expect to work in React Server component environments?
Yeah. And the routing is happening kind of like still kind of from outside. That's because that's the thing of like you can't do like render to string anymore. It needs to have all of those kind of like complicated integrations. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I
uh-huh,
think I don't know. Like I don't know what the answer to that problem you're bringing up is, other
uh-huh,
than like just becoming another React framework. Uh, I I think we need to wait and see on this one. I don't think it's going to be like overnight that
yeah.
people are going to start filing issues in Astro that React components don't work and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I'm
but
not
I'm just saying
super
that
concerned
if
about
it's
that.
going to happen, this is going to like happen this way. It's like, hey, I installed this npm package and like I put my component into Astro and then it doesn't work. Like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, that's like I know it's some ways. Some ways it's like I don't know. It almost feels like a Python 3 moment to me a little bit. It's like community, like a lot of the community is going to stay behind. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, TanStack, all that stuff feels like they're. I don't know. I haven't. You probably know way more than me, but it feels like that they're not totally on board with React Server components.
Yeah,
And
so you're
um,
hitting like the right note. I
But I
sent.
mean, to get to your point, because you
Uh-huh.
spent a lot of time explaining that, like I don't know what the solution to that particular problem is. Like, what do we do when that world exists? Well, either we stop existing and we become another Next.js alternative, or what? I don't know. Or we just don't support React. Like I don't know where the fine balance there, but yeah, I think there is definitely a world where we can support React server components, but they do become like their own islands. And like once you enter an RSC context, like now you're inside of that, and like, but you won't be able to use them as like composably like you can in Astro environment now. You won't be able to necessarily do the same things you can do
Yeah.
uh,
In a
currently. I
sense,
don't know.
you have to make like Astro React Server Components framework before you can use like React Server Components, right? And I understand
Yeah,
what you're saying. Yeah. So
I'm really curious, like how many of these frameworks are there going to be like outside of Next? I don't mean that in a to be negative, but just like in a practical sense, it seems like there is so much work involved to build one of these things that I don't know. It's going to be. I'm sure there's always like new hobby projects people come up with uh, for these kinds of things. So
yeah, I'm trying to find like a tweet that I sent. The idea was that like, hey, how quickly we change from like we hate those React Server components to like, hey, my implementation of React Server components is better than the other one. And it's like on the same week, then like in 2 days, there were like two React Server components like framework that's or like implementation that happened. So it could happen pretty quickly, but just to like agree with your point about like what is happening to the community. The idea is that like this is what Ryan Corniato said is like, oops. uh, the idea is that uh, like React wanted to do React Server components for so long, and no one would agree with them to do that. So Next is like the only one who's like, okay, screw our users, we are doing this.
yeah, well, I mean they have a lot of core React employees, so uh, yeah, it's they have control in a lot of ways. So
Right,
it,
but
it
it's
yeah
the idea that Ryan is selling is like it's the control the other way. It's like the React, because they are in Vercel, they had this lever to pull and like to change Vercel to support that.
yeah
Yeah, and
yeah I
Jesse
don't know how
mentions
it's gonna happen.
that the framework is called Walking Work. That's the one that Ben tried, and uh,
called what now? Can you say it again?
It's Waku work. It's like it starts with W. Waku work. it's
Walk.
it's it's a bit wacky as Ben said it. But anyway, so uh, next thing that I kind of like wanted to say is like those Bling family of frameworks
Hmm.
is I just quickly like explained the history. So this was like 3 months ago. This is when Tanner kind of like started to look more into like, hey, can I create SPAs on top of Astro, right? And
Yeah.
so his solution was, okay, we are creating kind of like layout, right? So that's the kind of like normal part. But then inside of our body, we're just like, hey, this is where our SPA lives. And this is
Hmm.
what we use at work at FogBender. When we migrated to create React app, we basically migrated to like Astro and like just Fat Island, just like client only React, and that's
I love that use case actually. Like we don't talk enough about that because
yeah.
people always assume that like, well, it's just not a blog, but it's like it really just gives you all the wiring up. It's got automatic bundling, all that stuff that's just a pain in the ass to like do yourself. Like if you just want to have a spa. I mean, I love the fact that you could have a spa in the same app, but then also have some content pages that set next to it. Like I think that is totally a valid way to use Astro.
Yeah, this is like the thing. 55 light score like lighthouse scores on CRA, 75 once we switch to Fat Island. So just by using like Vite, just by like fixing basically like bundle splitting, all that kind of like crap, that is like I don't know why it didn't work in like Webpack. Like, do I need to like figure it out? And then
Right.
for our landing page, we just like turned on pre-rendering. So it's like all the other ones are just like client only, but this one we just like turned on client idle or client load. I don't remember which one. And like we could have to stuff like, hey, this is like a Vimeo like video, like show it only when it's like client visible, right? So all like
Uh-huh.
turn on all of that stuff. Hey, we're getting 90 for like for this like not optimized kind of thing, just like just our React existing React code. Okay, so
Sure.
speaking of Fat Islands, so this is how TanStack kind of like start, I think, happened. Like at first, is like,
Hmm.
hey, I can use a layout, and then I just have my like router. I get all the like routing information so that I can render like the proper stuff.
Yeah.
And so at some time, unfortunately, they kind of like gave up on that. so um, so this is the current repo, and it has
Well, I think I think that wasn't that just a demo that he was working on to like get TanStack stuff working inside of Astro. Like I don't know if that was ever like what he's working on now. What's his meta framework called? Does he have a name for it yet?
yeah, it's TanStackStart.
TanStackStart, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that my understanding was that like he was working on getting the router working in Astro, and that was kind of an inspiration for TanStackStart. Not that he intended to work that way. You know what I mean?
Right. I just wanted to say that's like this is like the fat island um, pattern, if
Hmm.
you can call it that. And this is what QGP is based on. It's like it's actually like not this particular website, but like a lot of my templates are like built this way, and this is what we
Hmm.
use at work. At some point, he's like, okay, I'm kind of like giving up. I just
Yeah,
have
he's like, why am I doing any of this Astro stuff
yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
I could just yeah, that's totally cool. I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so TanStack Start and SolidStart, this is the architecture they're using. They're just like, hey, give us the request response, and uh, give us a request response.
Yeah, there's a pattern, there's a an API in integrations called inject route, I think. So you could actually avoid having to put this file in your project as well.
Yeah,
But this is not that much to do. So.
yeah, I know what you mean, and I think he had examples of that, or maybe like SolidStart using. I saw them having it, and I saw them like reverting back. So I think
Yeah,
there are like still some issues with it. I tried it for
it might
QGP
be.
as well, and I like haven't talked with them about it, but this is just like it's going to be like this file anyway if you just like inject it. So I'm just
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
like explaining the kind of like the level, and the idea is that hey, but like here I have hello Astro, which is like full blown. So like Astro
Yeah.
routing happens first, like Astro
Yeah.
server, like Astro NPA routing happens first.
Hmm.
So if you ever have image integration, if I have like static landing page and all that stuff, right? This is where it's going to happen. But then for the rest of my app, this is kind of like the fat island that they do. There is actually like a benefit of doing that. So if I go to like um, if I go to our app, so this is the part of SPA, and it's like, hey, why am I spending like I don't know like extra few kilobytes of like stuff that's not actually going to be used, right?
Hmm.
If this just a fat island, can I just do export const fat island equals true and just like skip all the like web components and stuff? It just like always hydrated.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So you don't want. I mean, all that. This is not really doing very much.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, this is essentially what this is that it does the lazy hydration,
yeah.
right? Is that even client load is actually lazy, right? Because it's like once the
I mean,
page
it's client
loads
only
and
right
then
now.
this what's that?
Client only
Oh, it's
for this.
client
Yeah.
only. Okay, well, which is the same thing as client load. It just doesn't run the server. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I I I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that you can like do both in the same app. I think that's uh, pretty compelling use case.
Right. I'm just
I
saying
don't
that
know.
there's like um, there is a way probably to like optimize for this use case, but I don't think they're doing this for that. I don't think they just don't want to run kind of like two bundlers on the same code. They want to control their own, as far as I know, they want to
Well,
control their own bundler.
they are. I mean, they are running our bundler because it's running it's all running under Astro. But they with with integrations, you have access to V plugins. Like they can do pretty much whatever they want,
Uh-huh.
so they can have control. Yeah, like page splitting and stuff like that. Like they have full control over doing all that stuff on their end.
Right. And then they're just like, hey, this is our like file-based routing, all of that stuff. So it's like
Hmm.
this is I don't know if this one, yeah, this one is using this is like older version of Bling, but
It's
hey,
cool how it's the app directory too. You know, it's like Next.js is now the app directory, and so like in TanStackStart and SolidStart, like there's going to be is SolidStart doing the app directory as well, or is
uh
theirs different?
I
You know?
I'm not sure what they're doing. I don't know how they're going to
Okay,
they said that they're going to keep like the whatever structure that they have right now, and I don't remember what is it. It could be like
okay.
source pages, it could be source routes. I don't
But
remember.
anyways, it is cool how like yeah, there's source pages, which is like the Astro part, and there's source app, which is
Uh-huh.
the TanStackStart part.
Right,
So.
and it's using TasStack because it's like it gives you all that like type safe routing and all of those kind of like features that are like they need that to get to those features. But and they're using their plugin for Bling, so they can
Hmm.
create like those inline loaders.
Hmm.
So that hey, this is like if you call this function call this on the server side, so you can like put your like keys, secret keys here, and it will like only be shipped to the servers.
Yeah.
So I have
How do you
to
feel about that, by the way?
which part?
Like the server, the Bling server stuff.
It's actually called fetch $sign now, but
Oh,
this is
really?
what my the website that I showed GPT one. This is what it's using. This is like the demo of that they did with this.
Oh, is it using TanStackStart?
It's using Astro.
Which is, yeah. Okay.
It's technically using like QGP, which is like my kind of like
Oh,
meta
okay.
framework on top of Astro.
You got
But
your own. Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
so it basically like you have here when you do like Astro config, you're like, hey, and do some of that QGP crap. It's actually
Okay.
like not all of it is needed for this page, but it's like, hey, please use this Bling plugin in both Vite developer server and
Yeah.
like in Astro production server. So this is the common is like between Vite and an Astro.
So you can use Bling just in regular Astro app. That's pretty cool.
Yes, and the idea behind QGP is that it's like it's a way to configure Astro and Vite at the same time, and this is what we use at work. Uh, because I'm sorry, I just got a message.
What do you mean by configure Astro and Vite at the same time?
Right. So this is our like fog vendor at work. This is what we use, and we have like a monorepo with like multiple things. So let's say that this is our landing, and it's okay. I'm not sure we should, where should I start with this. So this is our like sign up thing. So if I um, so what I started right now, I started the dev command. So all of that stuff is running in Vite, but now I can restart this thing and everything is going to be in Astro. So it's like, yeah, it's building because I didn't run this for a long time. Is it going to work? Okay, it might not. I have like a this this issue in Astro where it crashes with
Oh no.
this Vite depths. So
I must send
I
that.
should like bring the other repo probably this one if I find it. In which one is it? Okay, QGP demo. So I can let me kill all that stuff then. Okay. I always kind of like forget to prepare demos. So
It's okay. Don't worry about
so this is the default configuration that we have on QGP website. So the thing about it is that it runs both ports. So okay. So this is the same website that is running at the same time in Vite and Astro,
it.
which means if I have
Well,
like
Astro uses Vite, so you say Vite and
Vite
Astro.
as a like a
Vite by
npm
itself.
run Vite.
Okay. Okay.
So okay, where's my
Gotcha.
pages? So now I can just like create Astro hello.astro and it's going to be hi. So now I created this new route, and if I go here to hello, it's 404. I didn't write 404. Nice 404 page here, but it works here.
Interesting.
Okay, so so what is the difference? The difference is that if I'm using React or Solid, I can go here and like find TTS button. And it's like, okay, so now instead of TTS, I wanted to say, where is it? Yeah, instead of TTS, it's going to be like a smiley face. So it's showing it here, it's showing it here. But the difference is that, of course, in Astro, it will like destroy the whole page, and there's like no HMR for React yet.
Mm-hmm.
And because our app is Create React App, it has like 3 levels deeply nested models. If you want to like work on a text, and like it will like
Gotcha.
destroy everything, it's basically like impossible to work on it. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
So
don't want to, huh?
if we supported React Refresh, would that fix this issue?
Uh, yes. The short answer
Okay.
is yes, because I think you fixed HMR for Svelte, right?
Yeah, because Bjorn is, I don't know if he's on the Svelte team, but yeah, Bjorn is very knowledgeable in Svelte.
Uh-huh.
The reason why we don't currently have React Refresh support is because um, in order to support multiple JSX frameworks in the same app, like
Mm-hmm.
we can't do that. I can't remember the exact reason, but so we've thought about fixing that and making it so that if you're only using React, then there's probably no reason to not be able to just use React Refresh. I think the multiple JSX is like the cause
Yeah.
of us not supporting that currently.
So, like QGP as a project is kind of like just what we had at work. I try to kind of like open source it because
Mhm.
it actually started as like a tweet from Ryan Florence. So he deleted that tweet, so it's like it's not as fun anymore. But his tweet was like, "Hey, I like HMR. Remix is like notoriously doesn't have HMR as well." It's like, yeah, I like HMR. I just like start a Vite instance on the side and just like create like an empty kind of like a index HTML file that just like points to the part of the application, and then you get like HMR in that part of the application. So this one is like,
I
huh?
Yeah, I totally agree with that use case actually.
Yeah, so this one is like actually doing like some interesting stuff. So because it uses Bling, like Bling will go to like their analogy of like slash API. And I
Hmm.
need to like proxy that stuff from Vite to Astro because only Astro has a backend. Only Astro can like handle those functions. So it's just QGP is like not a thing. It's kind of like a jamstack. It's like just a feeling of like, hey, I wanna I wanna work on my thing, and so that it
That's
has
cool.
a HMR. Once you have HMR, but it's like then again, if I'm working on like app that has React and Solid at the same time, maybe like I will still use QGP for that stuff. There is also like kind of like level of emulation of some of the Create React app kind of like things, so that like
Hmm.
it's easier to just like run the same app in Vite and in Astro. So once you fix the HMR story, I don't have to run like extra Vite instance, but I still need to do kind of like some of those like inconsistencies with CRA.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
um, this is just to show like where that's why I was so interested about like Blink's frameworks, because it's like, okay, what are you guys doing? Are you doing the same thing that I'm doing, or is it like different? And at some
Yeah.
point, as I was showing, it's like they were doing the same thing. They were doing, oh no, that's the wrong one. I forgot what was the right
By the
one.
way, I probably need to go in about 15 minutes or
Uh-huh.
so. So just so you know.
Yeah. So this is where they started, and I was like, yeah, guys, I'm like 100% on board with you. That this is exactly what I'm doing. And at some point, they were like, okay, now we're doing like a bit different stuff, and I'm like, okay, which means that you could have potentially in the same app like Astro, uh, Astro website for your like landing,
Hmm.
your TanStack router for like I don't know, like a new dashboard that you're writing for I don't know, like your customers, and
Mhm.
you have your old CRA website that is like admin only, which could be like worse, and like no one knows how it works anymore, but no one wants to rewrite it, right? And this is where
Yeah.
you could use, at the same time, you could use like Astro, QGP, and like those Bling frameworks, and hopefully that's all kind of like going to work somehow.
Yeah, I
And
know.
uh
Yeah, I love this environment we're creating where like you can like take all the like little parts and like plug them into your app and like everything's like very composable. Like it feels very nice. That's something that we've always had in Astro, but like honestly, not that many people like really tried or took advantage of it. But I feel like with things like TanStack's start adopting Astro is that there's going to be more of these like little utilities that are useful just throughout the community and stuff. So
right, and I think going back to like how are you going to support React Server components? Maybe like you won't. Maybe there's going to be React Server components in TanStackStart, or maybe there's going to be like a kind of like
yeah,
similar framework that is like React Server component oriented, and it's like, hey, just like install that thing. So like give a like a sub route to this thing, and it will do all of that. Kind of
yeah,
like,
totally.
yeah,
I had not thought about that. But that's completely true. Is
right.
that maybe we don't even have to worry about it. It just becomes like an integration or something.
Yeah, and going back to that like thing that we started like talked in, at the start, is like you can have like a kind of like blessed integrations, right? So like images were just like a thing that you were kind of like working on until it kind of like got good. And
Yeah,
like maybe React Server components is just like part of the like Astro, it's just like one of the Astro integrations. So there's like, hey, if you want to use like MDX, use this. If you want to use RSCs, use this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah. So I think we only have time to like for everyone who's stuck around through the whole stream and still wondering how that SPA navigation is working. Okay, let me let me find it. It's actually like um, again, we're not using any of that stuff as work yet because it's just like it's just demos that I'm building to show like that Astro is not just content.
Hmm.
And okay, let me remember how it goes. So the idea is that we have like a, a regular like content collections, and that content collection that so I have like layout for all of that stuff, and then there is one island for kind of like the main content, and that island gets server component for like article text. So this is why we don't have to send text twice. It's like it's just a um, we don't have to hydrate it. It's like, yeah, it's just HTML, right?
Yeah.
And uh, then if you go to app, it's like it's a solid app. I don't know if I can click like that. No, it doesn't look like I can. Uh, so this is just a like a layer that I create so I can reuse this file between like Vite and Astro. It's like it doesn't have to be there, but it's like, hey, this is where our app starts, and
Hmm.
this is like this app has SSR, it has routing and all that stuff. So and I can use the same app like from both places. So I can just like import it from Astro as you just saw, or I can just like render it through it. This is like verbatim what Ryan Florence said. And so we go to our app, which I think it's components app. Yeah. So uh, okay, so it has like solid router and all that stuff. It has its own layouts, its own kind of like logic how it does everything. And at some point we're like, we have docs component. I think it's literally just like, uh, I think it's literally just like inner HTML stuff, and like it doesn't do anything else. Yeah, so like this is what it does. I think it's like yeah, it's using resources because it's like Solid is like aware of promises, so like this data could be like coming. I don't have like any loading indicators, but this is just how it works. More or less, it's just like inner HTML stuff, and uh, so far it's like just a regular kind of like Next.js app that just gets. Oh yeah, I forgot this part. So it either gets content uh, from like children components, or it gets it from the loader. So when we navigate, our loader kicks in and it's like, hey, I want to get an article. Okay, I don't
Okay.
know. Huh? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't. I said I follow.
Okay, so this is that get article component that turns articles into HTML, and we actually use the same component kind of like as a component, and we also have it as a page. So to get those partials, we just go to the same component.
Right.
And okay, just one fun part left. uh, and what you should be thinking is like, okay, so if this is an island, where's Island? Okay, so here, oh, you do like that uh,
So wait,
CSS magic.
you do diff or you do not diff?
No, I don't. It's all it's all handled with Fat Island.
Okay. Gotcha.
And this is this is where the Fat Island happens. And it's like, okay, but I'm not clicking links inside of this thing. I'm
Right.
clicking links here.
Yeah.
How would you done it?
Well, you can listen to clicks anywhere in your scripts.
This is actually not how I did it. So for each click, for each link, I create a new island, and
Okay.
it uses island link, which we almost got to. So it renders a link. There is probably like a link component in SolidStart, but I just like forgot about it. Or I think there was some issue with it. I don't remember, but it's like it listens for a click, and it calls this kind of like basically like a global variable. I think this is like QGP set path is just like I just declare it in window. Yeah, so I can just go to like docs and it will
Mm,
go there. So
cool.
yeah, so
Yeah, I don't think I totally understand how this is working in fullness, but yeah, that's cool
okay,
that you're able to
so
wire it up.
I imagine any SSR framework like Next.js, right?
Yeah.
So this thing, like this fat island inside of it,
Hmm.
this is that framework. It can SSR on the server, and it turns into SPA mode, and it knows how to like load different pages. And instead of get server side props, it has like a get article basically that
Hmm.
partial that renders to HTML.
Hmm.
So, and like the joke of this thing is that I could have done the whole thing as a fat island, right?
Hmm.
But I'm like intentionally making it more complicated to kind of like showcase all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, you have
Right.
like SSR that is like not, like SSR SPA like application, not inside of like some sub route, but you have it like inside of the island basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it requires some magic to like to do all of this thing. You actually can notice that like this part is also updating, and it's like it requires like a third mechanism, and this is to showcase some other stuff that this is like kind of like outside of what we're talking today. But um could you would you believe me that I think that Astro is like the future?
I don't know. I know. I think we're definitely still focused on the content story. So Like I think as much as we can make it possible to enable people to build like these types of crazy things, like that's awesome. Like one of the great things about what we built is that we kept our scope small enough, but we made it composable so that, we're worried about this scope, but everybody else can worry about this,
Yeah.
Like we don't have to worry about the client and stuff like that. We can like leave people innovate totally separate from us. So yeah, I don't know. Astro, I hope so. Hope it's the future. Like I, yeah, I certainly hope so. It'd be good for us.
Yeah, and for those like Bling frameworks, the idea is that hey, Astro is the best request response provider. Is like it's what kind of like Fastify, or I forgot like what were the things that were doing that, right? So like this is our like backend like thing that just like routes our requests and does something. They're like, no, we like the Astro approach. It just
Yeah.
gives us request response, but it's if we integrate with that, it doesn't feel as how do I say it?
Well, it just goes to show how much work it takes to build a meta framework, Like
Yeah,
you don't think that it's that much work, but I mean, when, someone like Ryan uh decides that, he'd rather not spend so much time building all this stuff because it is a crazy amount of work. So yeah, I'm happy for us to be able to do that. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens. Part of we're kind of worried a little bit, like because I mean we were built for a very specific use case, and so sometimes we're worried that they're going to run into like weird bugs because they're very stretching the limits of what, and I guess you are as well,
yeah,
of what's possible within Astro. So yeah, always worried about like are they going to run into like use cases and they're like I can't use Astro anymore. I better just like go a level under and just use V directly or something. But
yeah.
I
And I
guess that
think
remains to be
that's
seen.
where I was going with it. It's like wheat is like the thing that kind of like unified everything, kind of like front end. It's like, yeah, you want to do like weird CSS stuff, yeah, just use Vite. You want to do like weird this stuff, just use Vite. And Astro is
Hmm.
like, and we also have like a proper like backend story. It's not just the client side stuff, but it also like
Right.
now I can like uh, in my like TanStackStart or like SolidStart, now I can use image integration. I can use like content collections and all that stuff. That is like just a backend feature
Yeah.
that they can just like easily leverage.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some work to be done there, but like images, for example, there's an API called getImage, so you can instead of having to use the image component, which is an Astro component, there's a function version of that. So you can easily build a wrapper solid component or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. And
and
it's
and get
if you have
get the
like
same thing.
I forgot this Cloudinary integration. It's yeah, it's like now Solid Image that has it, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, that's really really nice.
Yeah, and I can imagine that like the same way that you have like React integration, there could be like React Server Components integration, or the same way there's like a TanStack start, there could be like a. I'm sure like most of the React frameworks will be pressured to do at least like some amount of React Server Components just because of like hey, I want to do full stack component that has like this feature and that feature. And it's like, yeah, we are building like a thing that okay, this is going to be like the last thing that I'm going to show.
I
uh,
was gonna say I'm gonna have to leave here in just a couple minutes, so
uh, so this is the like this is the chart that I was looking yesterday and was like, okay, Next has finally overtaken React app in
right.
npm downloads. So the same way as like every tutorial covers create React app, every like library has like our migration from like CRA to Vite was like so complicated because like none of the dependencies are working in Vite. And like we were waiting for like startup to die so we can like not use their library anymore so that we can switch to Vite. That was like the thing that was happening. So now if Next is default, like everyone is going to test only in Next, and if like it doesn't work in Next, okay, like no one is going to use your like library or package and so on.
Yeah. I don't know if yeah, it's that was a weird time where that was the case with Webpack. And I don't know if we're ever gonna get back to that world. Because I feel like even as popular as Next is, like there's still such a diverse landscape of options out there that like yeah, if you build something in a way that only works in Next, it's gonna and some people will do it, but I'm not super worried about that. But I agree with you that the fact that you could build something in Astro and kind of get that, and it's like maybe it's a little off to the side and it's not part of your main Astro app, but that's totally okay too. So since you know a lot of people who like to build weird, fun stuff, like you should talk to someone about like why not build that React server component integration for Astro.
Yeah. And again, my problem is that I only do this for fun. We don't use like JavaScript on backend, so this is
Yeah, I
like
understand.
a bit yeah. So Nicole is staking, so Next is overtaking React. I mean, we'll see. It's like I'm drawing a trend through like three dots. So uh, okay, so I think we should stop. And do you have anything you wanna? Do you have anything you wanna
Promote?
mention? Do you think? Do you have? I don't know. I put your Twitter in the video
Oh yeah.
description. Is that like a good place to reach out to you?
Yeah, reach out to me there. Astro.build is the website. You should visit that. We have a Discord, astro.build/chat, I believe, is how you get there.
Uh,
So yeah, all those things.
okay. Yeah. And thank you for doing this. This is really cool to kind of like uh, to talk about this like nerdy stuff that is hopefully is going to be like important soon, right? Because it's like we're talking about things that are going to be built like in, I don't know, like in a year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Okay. And we're starting. Thank you everyone who jumped in on the stream, and yeah, it was nice seeing familiar people in chat. And okay, uh, I'm actually going to take like a probably like a break on streaming because of the I'm going to travel. But yeah, just rewatch this stream. I think it went well.